Raw was a tape show this week since they were on tour in Europe, and it felt like one. The most significant thing to happen wasn't even taped that night. It was a pair of backstage segments they taped at Smackdown the previous week with Jimmy and Jey Uso, their first interaction since WrestleMania. Jimmy wanted to talk to him. Jey wanted no part of it. Now, Jimmy had told Roman Reigns on SmackDown the previous week, we need help, because they're getting outnumbered by Solo's Bloodline every week, and they need help. And Roman was not on board with the idea. He said no yeet. But Jimmy showed up at Raw anyway, and nothing happened. But on SmackDown Friday night, Jey Uso crashed the show during a Bloodline segment to speak to his little bro. Roman and Jimmy had not yet arrived at the building, he said, so he wanted to address Solo directly. Now, if you want to know why Jey is in the spot that he is in, all you got to do is take a look at that crowd. When he came out on Friday night, they were not expecting him to be there. You could tell. And these people went nuts for him. They were bobbing up and down. They were so happy to see Jey Uso. And Jey said he wasn't there to fight. He still cares about Solo because he's his little brother. And Solo didn't like being called little brother. Jey's issue was that Solo is driving their family apart. And the Ula Fala, he said, is not taken, it's earned. And if Solo wants that power, take it without dividing the family. And Solo said he'll always have a place for Jey in his bloodline so long as he acknowledges him. You're either in or you're out. And Jey took issue with him bringing in the others. He goes, why them? Why did you have to bring them in? And then he looked at Jacob and he said, there's a reason why we stayed away from him. And I like that line because it makes Jacob Fatu look like a psycho. Like he's too dangerous and unpredictable even for them. And then the line about how if Jacob keeps staring at him like that, he's going to knock his ass out. The crowd popped for that. He said the next time he sees Solo, it's going to be different. I thought it was a really good segment, even though it was weird how Jey he blew off Jimmy on Monday and just wanted to be left alone, but then he just showed up on the show on Friday. So what I think we just saw was Jey Uso just cost himself the Intercontinental Championship tomorrow night in his rematch with Braun Breaker. I mean, there's your out for not having Breaker lose clean to Jey twice in a row. Jey pulled their Punk card. Now there's got to be retribution. They cost him the title tomorrow. Now Jey has a real reason to be brought into this story and want to team with Roman and Jimmy against Solo's crew at Survivor Series. Now later on in the back, when Roman and Jimmy pulled up to the building, Jey actually looked just as excited to see Jimmy as Jimmy was to see him. But then he looked at Roman and his demeanor completely changed. And again, it was weird seeing Jey's reaction to Jimmy on Monday compared to here. But he went to go walk away. Roman grabbed him by the arm and he told him he was proud of him. They all are. Jey told him no yeet. And he walked away. So it's going to take a little bit longer to mend fences with those two, as it should. But the Bloodline costing Jey his title tomorrow night, that would go a long way towards speeding up the process. And then they just have to round things out with Sami Zayn and Paul Heyman, and they'll have the OG crew back together. Lash Legend was back this week on SmackDown for a singles match with Piper Niven, and she got a little bit more time to show what she can do than she did in her tag team match against Bianca and Jade. The crowd did not have much reason to be invested in any of this, but I thought she got over pretty well with her power moves, and her finish got over. You know, where she got Piper on her back, almost in like a kind of like a reverse Samoan drop position, and then dropped her. I don't know if this is meant to be a permanent call-up for her and Jakara Jackson, but I can see Lash getting over well with her power, not unlike Jade. You know, Jade Cargill, she gets the hot tag in every single match that she's in, and she uses her power to pop the crowd. They follow the same formula every single match, and it works, and she's a great athlete. So is Lash. You know, she played college basketball. She even played a few games in the WNBA. I think it was like 3, but you know, she was a great college athlete. She beat Bianca Belair's gym record at the PC. I think it was for ball tossing, which all right, you know, sounds dirty, but I'm almost positive it was ball tossing. She's crazy strong. I'll never forget that time she body slammed Otis on NXT. You know, it's one thing if Otis he comes running in, and his momentum, he's kind of helping her, but she held him in the fucking air before she slammed him. And I remember watching that thinking, are you kidding me? Like, if she ever does that on Raw or SmackDown, that place is going to come unglued. She'll be over instantly. She still needs time to develop, but it's not hard to tell that if she puts it all together, she could be a big star for them. They had 2 triple threat matches to decide which teams would face each other next week for the right to challenge the Bloodline for the tag team titles. DIY beat out the Street Profits and Pretty Deadly in one match. And in the other, we had the debut of the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, with a win over Los Garza and A-Town Down Under. Now, they spoiled the reveal on social media earlier in the day by posting a segment with Sabin and Shelley meeting with Nick Aldis to sign their contracts. And on commentary, even I think in the commercial break or right before the commercial break before the match, they were openly just talking about how the Motor City Machine Guns are coming up next, here on SmackDown. That was strange, for them to air a couple of weeks worth of cryptic vignettes teasing a debut without spoiling who it is. And even Aldis last week, he said, I've got a tag team in mind to wrestle, Los Garza, a new team that we haven't seen before. But he didn't tell us who. And then casually just telling us who 5 hours before the show. So that was weird. I didn't think it was a big deal. There's no reason to get pissy over it. They probably figured they're not well known enough to their audience to make a difference one way or the other. And they're probably right. It's like when Aldis debuted on SmackDown. He didn't even get an entrance. Nick Aldis, he just appeared at ringside. The camera cut over and look who's walking up the steps. Right? Triple H was in the ring and Nick Aldis walks into the ring, and that was the way they handled his debut. Now, think about that as compared to, say, the Viking Raiders, who are known to their audience and they have been gone for months. So we got cryptic vignettes for them the last few weeks on TV. And they gave them the surprise return on Monday night without spoiling it. It's just how they operate. It's how they think. They can save the surprise for someone their fans already know. Their fans don't know who the Machine Guns are, which was pretty obvious by the reaction they got when they walked out. I mean, some people knew, but the vast majority of the people didn't either know or they didn't care. Hardly a holy shit moment for that live crowd. They did give them some pyro for their entrance, their music. I'm not a fan. They didn't have a real chance to show off what they can truly do here. It was a triple threat. There was a lot of traffic. I think that's going to come this week because on Friday, they are going to wrestle Gargano and Ciampa in a number 1 contenders match. And that is going to be one hell of a match. And that is going to be a much better showcase, I think, for the Machine Guns. It's, as I think about where this goes and what happens on Friday, it's hard for me to imagine them losing, which means that they're setting up, I think, for the Machine Guns to challenge Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. All the more reason to expect them to cost Jey Uso the Intercontinental title tomorrow night. Then Jey can come right back and cost them, cost the Bloodline their tag team titles, tit for tat. And they don't waste any time putting the titles on the Machine Guns. We've got new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. And even if they don't do it that way, look, I'm happy for those guys, okay? It took them 18 years to do it, but they've got the biggest platform they've ever had now to go out there and show the world what they can do. And on top of that, even better, SmackDown gets a veteran tag team added to the division, and they desperately need more of those. Cody Rhodes was on the show. He came out and cut a promo with the Crown Jewel Championship on a pedestal in the ring. I hated this. I hated the Cody Rhodes promo almost as much as I hate this whole champion against champion concept for Crown Jewel. This is what I feared, where the build feels more like, okay, let's just get this over with so we can focus on Survivor Series more than anything that really feels meaningful. And I think in recent years, they've done a much better job of making these Saudi shows feel more meaningful. But this is what I feared. He came out and what did he talk about? He talked about taking the John Cena schedule when he came back to the company. And I even added to it. And I paid the price. I guess because he's on the road so much that he's away from his family, I think. I don't know what he was going for here exactly. But he basically cited his daughter as the reason that he has to win the Crown Jewel title. And then he invited Gunther to come to SmackDown next week to explain his reasons. Why do you think that you should be the Crown Jewel champion? Why do you want to be the Crown Jewel champion? Seriously, this is how they're promoting next week's face-off between the two of them. I don't give a shit. We already had one face-off between them on Raw. Now we're going to have another one that isn't going to lead to anything important anyway. This was easily the most boring and, I think, needlessly meandering promo from Cody so far. He already has the most important championship in the entire company over his shoulder. I can't bring myself to care about this. The match will be good, but I just can't bring myself to care about this. This week, they were more open to airing footage of the Kevin Owens stuff instead of just trying to hide it. They aired the footage of his attack on Cody after Bad Blood, and then Owens crashing the show last week and being knocked down by Randy Orton. Then they aired a video that Owens sent in, explaining his actions. And he said that he's been here for 10 years, and he has had a lot of ups and downs in those 10 years, but things right now might be the lowest of his career. He's been told to stay home because of what he did, and that's unfair. Look at what this company has allowed on their television show in the past, and for some reason, he's the one who's told to stay away. Why? Because he dropped their golden boy outside of his stupid bus? You know, he keeps saying this stuff. He's going to turn himself babyface and turn Cody heel. Said the whole ordeal makes him wonder how much he is truly valued by WWE. And he could deal with that, but Randy Orton siding against him is something that he cannot deal with. He can't deal with the fact that Randy chose Cody over him. He would have never done that to Randy. He thought what they had was different. And with everything going on, he isn't sure when or if he'll be back. So from that, they aired a segment with Randy Orton asking Nick Aldis for a match with Owens at Crown Jewel. And Aldis said, I can't do it. And Orton was angry about it, and Aldis tried to explain to him, it's not that I wouldn't do it, I can't do it. This is coming from up above. And Orton understood, and he said he knows then who he needs to go talk to, implying Triple H without actually saying it. Triple H is the one who tweeted after Bad Blood that this was a matter they were going to handle internally after Owens, attacked Cody. So that should be a very interesting interaction. I still don't think we get the match between Orton and Owens at Crown Jewel, though. I think they're going to hold off a little bit longer on that. Nia Jax was forced to team with Candice LeRae, who stepped in to volunteer since Tiffany Stratton was home, according to Nia, with the sniffles, taking on Bayley and Naomi. They have not done a damn thing with Candice LeRae on television since they dropped whatever the hell that angle was with her and Nikki Cross. That was like ages ago. Remember that whole thing where Nikki was like stalking her or was catatonic and wouldn't speak? And then it just got dropped, probably because it was fucking terrible. But all of a sudden, Candice is the women's speed champion on their little Twitter show that they have with 3-minute matches. We get 3-minute matches on SmackDown every week. She should be allowed to defend her title on that show, too. And Candice got the win for her team. Indy Hartwell was outside. She sent Bayley into the ring post. Referee didn't see it. Candice nailed Bayley with a springboard moonsault and pinned her. And then she had that aw shucks look on her face after when Nia was looking up at her. If they're setting her up, and I don't know if this is what they're doing, if they're setting her up to be Nia's new sidekick after Stratton cashes in her Money in the Bank, I would be fine with that. I think Candice is overdue for a push anyway. I mean, with the right role, I think that could work for her and for Indy as well. Candice is one of those things where when she was part of the Way and they actually had her doing stuff in NXT, she was entertaining. So you have this woman, she's under contract. And like I said, they just put the speed title on her, so they have her wrestling on Twitter. But it's like you have her, and I don't know why it's taken this long for them to try to come up with something meaningful for her. Yeah, that's why I'm in support of the idea, because Tiffany is better than this, and she's going to cash in eventually, and she's going to win the title, and she's going to move on. And if they still want Nia to have a sidekick, or even have a little trio going, I'm okay with that. And I think that Candice would probably be a good fit for that spot. And then they ended the show with what else? The Bloodline and Roman Reigns confronting Solo Sikoa in the ring. Roman wants to put the family back together. What can I do to fix things? Tell me. And Solo says, all you got to do is acknowledge me. And so Roman does. He says, I acknowledge you. There, you happy? And Solo says, that's not good enough. Acknowledge me as your tribal chief, or else. I love how this fucking guy, he stands there and he goes, or else, or else. He's lost every important match he's had in the last 3 months, or else. That's when Roman snapped at him. He goes, or else what? And Solo laughed and he says, that's the Roman Reigns that I knew was still there. You haven't changed at all. And he snaps his fingers and out comes Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, dragging Jimmy Uso's dead body out on stage with them. So they hit the ring. Roman ended up taking out each member of the Great Value Bloodline. He spotted the Ula Fala on the mat, picked it up, placed it around his neck, but then Solo low-blowed him, and they took it away from him. And they left Roman laying after a beating. And that's how the show went off the air. So rinse, repeat. You've seen this all before. Solo stands tall, finger in the air. It's all part of the build to War Games and the eventual OG Bloodline reunion. But like, if you look at this show, like in a vacuum, if you just judge it as a show, it's the same boring ending that we have seen a million times this year, where the Bloodline lays out Roman or they lay out some other person and they stand tall. And, you know, heat is one thing, but you do get to a point, and I'm not saying they don't have any heat with the audience, but you just get to a point where it just gets very dull. Like, you could just objectively watch the show and go, this is fucking boring. Like, we got to change it up in some way. But you can see where things are headed. Like, there's a light at the end of that dark tunnel. Jey had already left the building, and so he, and even if he was still there, right, he's not about to come out and help Roman Reigns. I really think they need to cost him that title tomorrow night and have that be the impetus for him being open to a reconciliation. They need to take something away from Jey Uso, something near and dear to his heart. He made it his mission this year to be a singles champion for the first time, and he finally achieved that. And the first thing he did the week after he won that belt, he stood in the ring and he dedicated that win to his mother. So to have these guys take it away from him, only a few weeks after he won it, it would give him a great reason to step up and put aside whatever his issues are that he has with his cousin and with his brother and unite for a common cause. And I think that's what's going to happen. I thought it was a decent episode. It wasn't great. You know, if there was one really good match or two to go with the storytelling stuff, I'd have liked it more. There just wasn't a whole lot going on. Even like the Machine Guns match, it was fine, but it wasn't anything great. I just wish it had some more on that side. But it looks like we're getting that this Friday. They're going to have Game 7. They're billing it as Game 7 between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, and we have LA Knight as the special guest referee. And the Motor City Machine Guns are going to be taking on DIY in a #1 contenders match. So on paper, going into this Friday, this looks like a very good show. Let's hope it ends up that way.